Meghan Markle doesn't collect friends, she collects leverage, and if the whispers are even half true, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie may be the next pieces on a chessboard that's already left the royal family bleeding. This isn't about loyalty. This isn't about healing. This is about timing, precision timing. Because when staff members last 10 months, when publicists vanish before their contracts mature, when foundations shrink from $13 million to barely $2 million in 3 years, that's not random. That's a pattern. 20 employees gone since 2020. The 11th publicist packing her desk. First comes the warmth, then comes the ask, then comes the door. The rhythm never changes. And now the spotlight has shifted. Not to a new podcast, not to a new Netflix rebrand, but to two princesses standing on unstable ground at the exact moment someone else specializes in saving unstable ground.
Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem.
According to multiple tabloid reports, Meghan and Harry may have found their next project. Two women, two cousins, two daughters of a man whose arrest has detonated whatever protection once surrounded the York name. Beatrice and Eugenie. Their father disgraced, their mother scrutinized, their social capital under review, and suddenly the timing aligns. Because if there's one thing history shows, it's that Sussex strategy thrives when institutions wobble. Their names are Beatrice and Eugenie, and if even fragments of these reports hold weight, the royal family isn't facing outside criticism. It's facing something internal, something familiar, something strategic.
Beatrice and Eugenie, sadly, are more implicated in this than a lot of people would like to think. Why as a society are people still calling them young girls?
Meghan Markle has all pretty much the same friends that Eugenie and Beatrice had. And in 2017, Fergie gave an interview after Meghan Markle got married and everything, welcoming them into the family. And she said that she had never met Meghan Markle until the wedding.
Here's the part most people conveniently forget. Meghan didn't enter Eugenie's world through Harry. Harry entered Meghan's orbit through Eugenie's world. Back in 2013, maybe 2014, both women circulated through Soho House in London, that private members club where fashion, media, and old money sip from identical glasses, pretending not to network. Their mutual link? Designer Misha Nonu. The same Misha who later arranged the 2016 blind date that changed the monarchy forever. Meghan confirmed it herself in 2021 during the Oprah interview. She already knew Eugenie, already shared circles, already planted within the social web that would later become her ladder. That timeline isn't romantic, it's strategic, and strategy always matters.
What I discovered was, of course, that she was hunting for a man in England from 2013, and she wanted wealth and she wanted fame, and she targeted. There's no doubt she targeted Harry.
Before Harry was even officially in the frame, Meghan and Eugenie were friendly as couples with Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank. When Harry began dating Meghan, Eugenie wasn't just supportive; she was the first royal to meet her. Not William, not Catherine, not Charles. Eugenie. According to Finding Freedom by Omid Scobie and Carolyn Duran, Eugenie described Meghan as just the tonic for Harry. Double dates followed, late Como holidays with George and Amal Clooney. And when the Sussexes left for California in 2020, Eugenie and Jack temporarily moved into Frogmore Cottage, freshly renovated with taxpayer funds. That wasn't distant cousin energy. That was alignment. That was closeness engineered long before headlines turned hostile.
They were not poor. They just wanted to land a rich man and make easy money. And the worst part of it all is that Meghan Markle was already with Trevor Engelson there. She was already living with him. There was no need for her to be hustling this way.
This wasn't casual overlap. It was cultivated intimacy. Years of shared spaces, shared holidays, shared positioning. And then came the fracture. After Mexit, the palace closed ranks. William reportedly stopped taking calls. Charles retreated into institutional silence. Catherine had never been deeply connected. But Eugenie? She crossed the drawbridge the opposite direction. Netflix cameras captured her in Montecito, laughing in gardens, playing with Archie on the beach. That wasn't subtle. That was public loyalty broadcast globally. Even in Spare, Harry described Eugenie and Jack offering quiet, supportive gestures to Meghan in front of the Queen herself. Small physical signals in rooms thick with disapproval. Gestures that spoke louder than speeches. Beatrice remained more cautious, less emotionally entwined, closer to the institutional spine of the monarchy. But overlap still existed. Royal Lodge gatherings, shared social networks, and as recently as 2025, reports suggested Harry and Meghan purchased a holiday property in Portugal near where Eugenie and Jack live. Proximity isn't accidental at that level. It's deliberate geography. So the foundation of this relationship? Documented. A decade long. It survived the most explosive family rupture in modern royal history, which makes what comes next far more complicated than gossip. Because now the York sisters stand at a crossroads shaped by scandal. Their father arrested. Public discourse reopening questions about succession. Titles. Relevance. The unspeakable becoming discussable. And palace-adjacent whispers claim that between 2024 and early 2026, communication between the Sussexes and the sisters cooled. Sources told the Royal Observer that Beatrice and Eugenie had pledged firm allegiance back to King Charles and Prince William, that during Charles and Catherine's health battles, the institution needed dependable faces, that the York sisters were stepping into quiet service. Royal biographer Tom Quinn echoed similar sentiments, public behavior shifting firmly toward the firm. Eugenie reportedly spotted meeting Piers Morgan, Sarah Ferguson publicly distancing from Meghan, the Andrews scandal threatening to erase whatever bridge once existed. The logic was brutal. Being near Meghan brings tabloid baggage. Being near Andrews' daughters brings Epstein associations. Neither hemisphere benefits from collision. So the bridge seemed to burn. The sisters walking back toward palace structure. Sussex chapter closing. Until February 2026, because that's when the News International dropped a story that reignited everything. Claims that Harry and Meghan were allegedly training Beatrice and Eugenie for a potential tell-all. Anonymous sources suggesting the Sussexes believed it would be fantastic for the sisters to speak their truth about their parents, their upbringing, their proximity to scandal, that publishers could be secured, that interview platforms were available, that money, substantial money, could be generated. The formula sounded eerily familiar. Take pain, package it, sell it, call it liberation. The Express amplified it, framing the alleged offer as something that could blow the monarchy apart from within, clarify Andrew's disgrace network, monetize grief, the same blueprint seen with Oprah, with Netflix, with Spare. The formula doesn't evolve, only the names do. And yes, these are tabloid claims built on unnamed sources. No contract signed, no official statements, but social media seized one word and refused to let it go. Puppets, because it captured something the polished headlines were tiptoeing around. And buried in the commentary was another explosive detail. Royal commentator Duncan Larkham wrote that photographs exist from Beatrice's 18th birthday party showing Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Harvey Weinstein within the same frame. If accurate, that detail changes the optics entirely, because in America, Epstein's name carries a different gravitational pull. And if Meghan is brand conscious, and history suggests she is, then public sympathy for Andrew's daughters becomes a calculated risk. Privately warm, publicly distant, support offered behind curtains while cameras are carefully managed. That's not spontaneous friendship, that's image choreography. The Sussex media operation has historically flowed in one direction, inward. When books are written, they center Harry and Meghan. When series are produced, they star Harry and Meghan. When interviews are booked, the narrative returns to Harry and Meghan. So if Beatrice and Eugenie were to collaborate through Sussex-connected channels, whose story ultimately dominates? Theirs, or the overarching narrative of exile and vindication? Meanwhile, Prince William is reportedly watching closely. Debates intensifying about succession optics. Some commentators even suggesting the York sisters be removed from the line entirely to shield the monarchy from Andrew's shadow. Invitations thinning, charity roles evaporating, social standing freezing not because of personal wrongdoing, but because of inherited proximity to scandal. That's the reality they face. February 2026, father arrested, mother scrutinized, palace balancing visibility with caution, William fond but wary, Charles needing dependable faces during health battles yet conscious of headlines. And on the other side, allegedly an open door, a publisher's pitch, an invitation to speak truth. Two roads, both dangerous. Stay within the palace and risk gradual marginalization as Andrew's shadow grows, or step into the Sussex orbit and risk becoming supporting characters in someone else's global production. Beatrice and Eugenie grew up curtsying to their grandmother, serving without monetizing family tension. That quiet loyalty is precisely what makes them powerful assets in any narrative war. Whether they say yes or no remains unseen. Most signals suggest caution, but the mere existence of these reports tells a large larger story, because Sussex strategy has never thrived on reconciliation. It thrives on revelation. And if this chapter unfolds the way whispers suggest, the next rupture won't come from outside critics. It will come from cousins. And here is where the silence becomes louder than any headline, because after those February 2026 reports detonated across tabloids and social feeds, something curious happened. Nobody directly denied it. No firm rebuttal from Montecito. No icy palace dismissal stamped with official language. Just that strange, familiar vacuum where stories are allowed to breathe long enough to become possibilities. And when a rumor is permitted to survive, it evolves. The idea that Beatrice and Eugenie could be positioned for a Sussex-backed tell all stopped sounding outrageous and started sounding plausible. Not because of proof, but because of precedent. The Oprah interview set the blueprint. The Netflix docuseries reinforced it. Spare monetized it. Every time the formula was identical. Frame the institution as cold. Frame the exit as survival. Frame the disclosure as courage. So imagine for a moment what happens if that same structure is handed to two princesses whose father's name is permanently wielded to scandal. Imagine the chapters. The childhood inside Royal Lodge. The whispered warnings, the Epstein proximity questions, the pressure of watching their father implode in public, the complicated loyalty to a monarchy that protects the crown but not necessarily the collateral damage around it. It would be explosive, it would be sympathetic, it would be profitable, and most dangerously of all, it would be believable. But here's the twist that palace insiders keep circling back to. Beatrice and Eugenie are not Harry. They were not spare heirs raised in resentment. They were peripheral royals raised in contradiction, daughters of privilege and controversy simultaneously. They learned early how quickly the spotlight can turn hostile. They watched their mother mocked in the 1990s. They watched their father's reputation erode in slow motion long before the arrest headlines. Survival for them has always meant strategic quiet, which makes the alleged Sussex offer both tempting and terrifying. Because yes, there is power in telling your truth to a global audience, but there is also irreversible consequence. Once you detonate the institution from the inside, there is no pathway back to balcony waves and carefully choreographed Christmas services. There is only exile, branding deals, and permanent narrative warfare. And if Meghan's critics are right about one thing, it is that she understands narrative warfare better than most people inside palace walls. There is another layer few commentators want to touch directly, but it hangs over everything like humidity before a storm: succession optics. When discussions reopen about trimming the monarchy, about slimming the working roster, about modernizing titles, the York sisters sit in an awkward middle ground. They are royal enough to matter, but not central enough to be untouchable. If Prince William ultimately chooses to draw a firmer line around the future of the crown, those outside the immediate will circle could find themselves permanently peripheral. That possibility alone creates vulnerability, and vulnerability attracts opportunity. If you are told you may never fully belong again, how hard would it be to consider an alternative platform where your voice is amplified instead of muted? That is the psychological opening critics believe Sussex strategy thrives upon. Not brute force, not coercion, just the soft suggestion that there is another stage waiting fully lit if you are brave enough to step onto it. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, brand calculations reportedly remain ruthless. The American media landscape does not treat the Epstein scandal as a fading chapter, it treats it as radioactive history. Any public closeness to Andrew's daughters carries risk, which is why, according to commentators like Duncan Larkham, the warmth would be carefully compartmentalized. Private support, public distance. It is a delicate dance, be close enough to secure trust, far enough to protect the brand. Critics argue that this dual posture reveals everything about the dynamic. Support that cannot withstand daylight is not unconditional, it is conditional on optics. And if optics shift, so can alliances. That is what makes the word puppet so sticky. Not because there is proof of manipulation, but because the structure of past events makes the theory feel consistent. The recruitment arc, the shared grievance, the monetized catharsis, the fallout. Then the next chapter. Inside the palace, the calculation is just as cold. Loyalty is rewarded quietly. Disloyalty is remembered indefinitely. If Beatrice and Eugenie remain visibly aligned with King Charles and Prince William during health crises and institutional strain, they may secure a protected but limited future. Occasional engagements, carefully controlled visibility, gradual rehabilitation separate from Andrew's shadow. But if they are perceived to even flirt with the idea of a Sussex-backed disclosure, doors could close permanently. The monarchy's survival instinct has sharpened since 2020. Half in, half out has already been declared unworkable. There is no appetite for another hybrid experiment. So the sisters stand between two worlds that no longer tolerate ambiguity. And then there is the emotional dimension that gets buried beneath strategy. Family, cousins who once double dated in Lake Como, shared holidays, shared confidences, shared laughter before the world fractured into camps. The betrayal narrative cuts both ways. If Harry believes the institution abandoned him, others inside the institution believe he weaponized intimacy for global spectacle. Where, in that battlefield, do Beatrice and Eugenie place their loyalties? With the cousin who once felt like an ally during palace chill, or with the sovereign whose reign defines their status? Every choice becomes symbolic, every public appearance analyzed, every absence dissected. What makes this entire situation volatile is not confirmed contracts or signed book deals. It is timing. Andrew's arrest did not happen in isolation. It occurred in a climate where monarchy relevance is under microscopic scrutiny. Charles and Catherine's health battles created vulnerability at the very top. William's future reign looms with promises of modernization and discipline. The Sussex brand, meanwhile, faces its own crossroads, with streaming deals under question and public patience thinning. In moments like this, alliances shift quickly. A well-timed revelation can redirect attention, reshape sympathy, or destabilize rivals. That is why even unproven reports carry weight. They reveal what observers believe is plausible, and plausibility is power. So here we are, watching two princesses who have spent their lives orbiting scandal without directly owning it, watching a couple who built an empire on disclosure, watching a monarchy recalibrating its boundaries. No signed memoir exists yet. No televised confession has aired yet, but the infrastructure for it exists. The publishers, the producers, the precedent, and perhaps most telling of all, the silence. Because if there were absolutely no conversations, absolutely no exploratory feelers, the denial would have been immediate and emphatic. Instead, there is that strategic pause, that refusal to clarify, that space where speculation grows roots. Whether Beatrice and Eugenie ultimately choose the palace path or the Sussex platform, the equilibrium has already shifted. Trust lines have been redrawn. William's reported watchfulness signals that future decisions about titles and succession could hinge on perceived loyalty. And across the ocean, the Sussex narrative machine has not slowed. It is merely waiting for its next infusion of insider gravity. The monarchy survives on continuity. The Sussex brand thrives on rupture. Two opposing survival strategies now orbiting the same vulnerable names. And maybe that is the real story beneath the gossip. This is not about one explosive book or one televised interview. It is about leverage in a family where proximity equals power. It is about who controls the next chapter of royal history. If Beatrice and Eugenie remain silent, the palace strengthens its narrative of unity after chaos. If they speak through Sussex channels, the aftershocks could travel further than anyone anticipates. Either way, the calm right now feels manufactured, too composed, too tidy, because families this fractured do not resolve tension quietly. They contain it until the next trigger appears. The question is not whether conversations have happened, the question is how far they have gone. And until one side decides to break the silence definitively, the suspicion lingers, hovering between cousins, between continents, between crown and exile. The monarchy is not facing an external attack this time. It is facing the possibility of another internal detonation. And if history is any guide, internal detonations are always the ones that leave the deepest cracks.